Awesome. All right, so welcome to the No Eggs / No Clay podcast. Today for AAPI month, we have a very, very special guest here with us today, James Vang. You might know him as the strongest Hmong man in the world, right?
You can say that.
Yeah, more than likely.
Yeah,
right?
If we're
You
looking
competed
at
internationally.
powerlifting or just those numbers, then you can say that no one is as strong as me at the moment.
At the moment.
Ooh, what's a big
Challenge-
claim?
challenge put out there.
Let's hear some numbers.
Yeah, so I actually just got done with the competition yesterday. I squatted 655. I bench pressed 479, and then I deadlifted 639.
Dang.
So the biggest total ever done in the United States for single ply, anyways, was 802.5 kilograms or 1769. And then I practically just did just a little bit more than that, just to trump it. And then I ended my powerlifting meet there. Because anytime you're doing those weights, like there's a danger zone where you're at the edge of getting hurt too.
Right.
So sometimes you got to know when to push and when to take a step back.
And just so for people to know, how tall are you and what do you weigh, so that people
Yeah.
can put into proportion what you're lifting.
Yeah.
So
Oh, and do us a favor, just twist a little bit towards the camera. So good, like push your
like
body.
this?
Yeah,
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. I know you're talking to us, but like that way
yeah.
the camera can see.
yeah, so I'm about 5'2". I might have grown a little bit, so maybe
Okay,
5'2" and a
chewing
half.
some change.
Yeah. And I weighed 148.75 during the competition.
Nice.
Holy smoke.
Yeah, so
So-
power to weight
So
ratio is
600 pound deadlift, 600 pound squat, and
479, so almost 500 bench.
yeah. So what's the total in pounds? So you said the old record was 1700.
Yeah, 1769, and then what I currently have is 1774.
Yeah,
So
right on.
Wow.
And,
Just enough.
and I think we were talking about earlier as well, because we had breakfast before we came here. You said that it was 20 years prior to you breaking this one. That was the last time somebody broke it.
Yep. So the guy that had this total before me, he's actually like a mentor of mine, and he's held this record like I think in 2005 or 2006. So like pushing about 20 years, you know. And if you hold like the total for about 10 years or so, you're pretty, you know, you're a stud practically.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that if it took people so long just to beat that total, I'm hoping that my total would last maybe just as long or if not longer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a hell of a feat. So congratulations. That's a hell of a feat to
Yeah,
have.
thank you.
And yeah, I hope for you too that it holds for a long time.
Yeah.
I hope as long as
crazy numbers.
possible.
Yeah. That's awesome, man. So then, so you're from Georgia and you came up here to Minnesota to compete?
Well, originally, I came here to visit my parents and like, you know, all of y'all. But since I'm up here, you know, trying to hang out with everybody because, you know, now that I'm a father of 5, you know, I really want to show my kids my world. And I thought since I'm going to be up here and there's a competition, just do it for the hell of it, you know. But it also ended up being one of the best meets. So
Yeah. So you just signed up for the hell of it.
yeah, for the hell of it.
And
Yeah.
crushed a new number.
Yeah, you broke a world record.
Yeah.
Just because you wanted to show you.
Well, it's more like a U.S. record.
Yeah.
The world record, I'm still like a little bit behind.
Okay.
There's like about 6 people that has done more than me.
Okay.
But again, you know, those are like, you know, Russian lifters kind of like out there, you know, so.
Yeah. Okay. That's pretty incredible though. Just the fact that you just signed up willy nilly and you broke a national record. That's pretty awesome. But so you said you came up here to visit your parents and then you came up here to visit us. So we've actually known each other for a long time, man, and we've connected. I mean, almost the past like 10 years. And there was a time where we were running a gym together. We were like training partners. Talk a little bit about that. Like, what do you remember from those days? Because you were up here in Minnesota for a couple years, and we were running the gym, and dude, you were making a lot of impact up here in the Minnesota like fitness community.
Yeah, I believe that was like in 2013. My parents, I think they moved to Minnesota. So I was still going to college in Georgia at the time. So I came up to Minnesota to visit them. And I think this was like when I first won my national champion. So I had like one national championship under my belt. And James Lee, If anybody knows him, if anybody remembers Cooley from Warman, it's practically his younger brother. He reached out to me and he really wanted to work out with me. He wanted me to teach him how to deadlift. So we ended up meeting at a LA Fitness, and I think his deadlift at the time was 275, and then I gave him a couple of tips, and then he ended up pulling 315 that very same day.
Nice.
And then he said, "Hey, how long you in town for?" I'm like, "Well, I'm visiting my parents, so probably a few more days." And he's like, "If you got time, let's go meet Peng and let's go train." I was like, "Peng, you're talking about the Hmong bodybuilder?" I was like, "You know him?" He's like, "Yeah. Me and him, we're close." So, so the very next day, we came into your basement.
Yep.
And then you
The dungeon.
you practically destroyed my back, that day. So that was really, really cool. And then I think ever since then, just because randomly we met each other, don't really know each other that well, but because we share the discipline of lifting weights, I think we just connected very well from there. And then from that point on, when I decided to bite the bullet and move to Minnesota, I think in 2016, then we just continued on from where we left off.
Yeah. And those were awesome times because, man, we were in college, like nothing better to do than just to like lift weights. At the time, that's when I met you too. I don't know if you and James ever met.
No,
at that
this is
time,
the
though.
first
Yeah,
time
this is
that
the
I've
first
met.
time.
Okay.
I've always known about James because I've always seen, because I'm friends with James Lee and you. So I've always seen all the posts, and I've watched the videos, and every time you post up, I followed with that. And I remember when you first came out on the Hmong Times.
Yeah.
That's the same time your articles were coming out at the same time, which at the time was awesome because 2012. We're not old by any means.
Yeah.
But
Getting there.
but there's also generations coming right after us now, and so you guys kind of led that path a little bit. Was there anybody? Do you know any powerlifter that were Hmong before you, like maybe in the '90s or early 2000s that you've heard of?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, a lot of people actually asked me that too. And there's actually a lot of powerlifters, I think young Hmong powerlifters in high school from Wisconsin. So if people don't know, like Wisconsin and like Texas and Louisiana, they're like heavy powerlifting states.
Yeah.
So a lot of I think young Hmong kids was powerlifting, but then once past high school, a lot of them I guess just drop off.
Yeah.
So when I was powerlifting, I'm kind of powerlifting beyond just high school and college, and I don't know if you guys know Tujer Bennett Shong, right?
Yeah.
He actually coined me Hmong powerlifter because he said, regardless if there was a powerlifter before you or not, you're the first one that everybody remembers. Right. So he just told me, since you're not going to quit and you're going to continue to push on, he just says, I'm just going to call you the Hmong powerlifter. And it's just a little bit easier, to kind of coin that term. So then that's where that started from as well.
Yeah. I think that's pretty safe to say that you are the Hmong powerlifter. I mean, you're definitely doing it at the highest level that we've ever seen.
Yeah, and you've documented a lot of your work.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of, maybe because we come in a generation where there was more media and phones that had cameras and stuff. But your stuff is documented. There's a lot to be seen. So it's kind of nice. There's a track record there. Yeah. Not just for you to look back on, but for like anybody who's just now coming into the sport. So not that there wasn't any before, but because all your stuff is recorded, now the kids coming up today can actually look at what you're currently doing and what you did in the past. So it's kind of recorded in history too.
Agreed. And I think that's really important too, especially like for young Hmong kids growing up. A lot of the times I think everybody might want to get into like strength sports and things like that. And some people may not have a lot of support. So I think it's very important for someone like me to write things down so people can kind of see that, I didn't have it easy. They could see that, my life is probably very similar to theirs. And if I can make it, how can you not,
Right.
So I think it's very important for me to like keep documentation and definitely talk about my experiences because it's more important for those coming up versus someone like me, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, that's like really important. I think last week we just had Ku on, and I think something you guys really hit on is like just the ability to connect with the community, and the ability to be like relatable, like, and not just be this phenomenal athlete, but your ability to connect with people has been phenomenal. Because like, and that's something like I saw in you and something I saw in Ku early on. It was just like, your willingness to go out and interact with the community, because we held like powerlifting meets, like public powerlifting meets, like free classes, and it was really cool for the community to come out and support, and to have you just willing to use your time and your effort to kind of show them. Because I remember at the July 4th.
Yeah, I was just gonna
had
talk about. You guys did an
2015.
event, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
2015.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. So who reached out to you to do that?
Honestly, I think when we were talking about it, I was just talking about how I can like fundraise, you know?
Yeah.
And I think me and James was talking about doing some sort of fitness event and then at the same time try to like fundraise, right? And I can't really remember how we got in, but there was somebody in the know that was interested in what we were doing. Because maybe a lot of people didn't really think about it back then. But post-COVID, I'm pretty sure people are starting to feel the effects of what it is to not think about your health.
Yeah.
Right.
So back then, you know, we really, really tried to educate people on fitness at the same time, show them what powerlifting and bodybuilding and how to lift heavy is. And it's not just about the heavy lifting, but it was more about the community of teaching people how to lift.
Yeah.
Because I find it that like when I was growing up, Hmong people, especially like when you're really good at something, they tend to keep it to themselves,
Yeah.
you know, because
Yeah.
they really, really want to be the best and they don't want no one to know their
Yeah.
secrets. But I always found that if you're really good at what you're doing, like you should be able to teach it to somebody else, right? Because
Yeah.
if you're good, it's a philosophy now. It's just not you. Because
Right.
if you're really good, you can make someone that's not good
Yeah.
just as good, right? So the ideology was like to educate, to bring fitness into the Hmong community and get people upstarted because like my family, you know, just about everybody that was important to me passed away from health problems that you could have solved with just simple walking and, you know, changing your diet a little bit.
Yeah.
Like just not drinking soda, you know, but
Yeah.
living in America, you know, so many people kind of abuse this. And then if you think from 2015 to today,
Yeah.
like how many people did we lose during that COVID phase? All because everybody's living
Right.
too
Underlying
good.
issues. Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. I agree, and that's why it's positive. That's why bringing somebody like you on is important because, of course, there's the aspect of powerlifting, which is that's what you do, but obviously in that world comes a aspect of a healthy lifestyle, and that's super important to share. I think if we're gonna narrow it down, since our podcast is a Hmong Man podcast, it's like we should share that message out to people because it doesn't take all that much. We're not saying if you want to go out there and try to put up his numbers, then
go
good
for it.
luck. But at the bare
I can
minimum,
teach you too.
yeah, exactly. He'll show you the secret. But bare minimum is at least talking about the topic, which is not about breaking the biggest numbers. It's just so that our community can sustain longer and save money.
Because I think like people get it a little twisted, I guess, with me and how I view the lifting. Because I think a lot of people think like I lift really, really heavy for the clout. But the thing was like I was lifting for years before I competed, and I always told people that if powerlifting didn't exist, I would still be lifting. I don't need people to follow me. I don't need people to like sponsor me or anything like that. Because lifting is like very special to me, and it just so happens that competitions exist, and every now and then, I would like to go and test my skill. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Yeah.
So I think when a lot of people get into the sport of powerlifting, from the very beginning, I want to show them that it's a deeper process. It's not just about the numbers. It's not just about being as strong as me. It's about building character, and through your character, the strength represents itself on the bar, if that makes sense. But when people get into the sport, they're always looking at like, oh man, you have like all these accolades, you got like all these medals, you got all these people want to take pictures with you. But all of that stuff is like the little stuff, it's more about the health aspect, the discipline, and the character growth in the person. And that's what I really want people to see, which is why I feel like it's kind of my purpose, to almost show people that, because I feel like if you get the wrong impression of who I am, I'm going to create this little event so you know who I am. And you can see why I am as strong as I am. And it's not just the numbers, it's a character thing, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And then I love that. Before we get too far, I wanted to bring up a memory that I think, just to lighten the mood a little bit. But remember in the 2015 July 4th tournament, like when we had to set up the event, you, me, and James, and we rented a U-Haul van. We brought out all of our own benches and all of our heavy equipment, and we brought up maybe a total of like 5,000 pounds in like dumbbells, barbell weights.
Yeah.
And remember when we were putting that away and like we almost like dropped like a crazy amount of weight on ourselves. We almost died because we were doing it out of Koo's gym, and then there's like a little incline that you have to
I remember
go
that
down,
gym,
right? And so we had this bright idea of just putting it on the cart. And it's me, James, and James Lee, and we're like, oh, we're strong young dudes.
And Chi
Yeah.
and Barb was there too,
Yeah.
but they were just watching us.
Yeah.
You remember?
And so we load up like 5,000 pounds on this cart. Like, oh, we're
And
going
try
to
to
just
wheel
wheel
it up
this
the
thing
ramp
down.
outside to the parking
Yeah.
lot. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then like completely, we like dropped. And like none of us, we all just jumped out of the way and this like 5,000 pounds come crashing down. But like, those were like some of the crazy stories. Like, and like times where it's like we've been asked to like come out into the community and do like crazy community work. But like I just remember, I mean, like prepping for that stuff was a grind. You know, setting it up. I mean, it was all you. You know, it was all you. It was, and so like just to talk about some of like the hardships of like and putting yourself out there for the community, because like I remember that day was a struggle, man. Like. It took all day to like lift and haul all those weights. Then we had to go out into Como Park in the middle of summer and then lift all those weights off the truck and then set up our tents and then breaking down at the end of the whole event was just all us, and it was just crazy, man. But those were like some of my best memories working with you and James, like those old days, man. And like, do you have any kind of memory about like working with James and myself, like from the gym?
Yeah. I mean, that's actually one of my favorite memories too. And actually, I still have video of that. Remember, it's on my YouTube.
Do you? Oh,
And literally, it was like you, me, James. We were like, all right, we all lift, right? Like, all right, I deadlift 500, you deadlift about 500, you deadlift about 500. I was like, we're gonna just slowly bring it down and ease it down, right?
Yeah.
But we didn't think that much weight was just gonna come tumbling down,
Yeah.
you know? And I think Chi was in the back kind of holding it. But because once we got down to the hill, boom, it just started coming down.
Immediately dropped.
And then all three of us was just like, oh my God, trying to get out of the way. And then you could see Chi just like, oh, she even
Yeah.
did like a little extra push
Yeah.
too. So
dude,
I thought that was really funny.
I apologize. I'm pretty sure I was the first to like jump out of the way and like just like drop the weight, like, oh, screw this.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna die.
And then I think me and James was the one that kept going. And then
Yeah.
when I saw you hop to the side, I was like, you know, that's a really smart idea.
Yeah.
We're down one guy. So then I think I hopped out of the way and James almost got hurt. But overall,
Yeah. Sorry, James.
because we survived, I think that's a really cool memory.
Yeah.
But in general, I mean, as of right now, I mean, I'm still doing it. So like, you know,
Yeah.
in 2016, all the way up until now, you know, like every year I've been doing like an event, and it really just depends on like who wants to that kind of a work. Because
Yeah.
just like you said, I mean, this is like a no money kind of a thing, you know,
Right.
like you're gonna lose more money than you make.
Yeah.
And it's gonna be tough. You know, people are gonna judge you because they wish you could have done it like this, or why didn't you do it like that, or why can't you bring better equipment, or why are you guys kind of so ghetto and things like that. You know, on how, because you got to remember, like all the stuff that we had was like really, really cheap stuff.
yeah.
You know, like
Yeah.
random place that we bought from different people. You know, different bars, platforms, and things like that. But that's the beauty of it. You know, because I truly believe that, you know, when as us growing up, we didn't have like access to all these gyms that we do now, you know, and I really appreciated the authenticity of like those old plates, you know, that old school feel that a lot of people kind of don't have anymore. And I really appreciated that. And if anything, when I do these events, what really, really makes me happy is when you change one person's life. Because I remember when you, me, and James, we had this conversation about like, yeah, we're doing these fitness events, but we're not getting like the draw that we thought we would, or like we're not getting the kind of satisfaction that we're getting. And that hit me really, really hard too, because that's something that's important to me, right? But I also thought, how many people from that moment, like 1, 2, maybe 3, that we changed their lives,
Right.
And I always think, if it's just one person, then it's worth it. At least for me, because I always have these deep thoughts about, okay, yeah, I mean, I could just stop doing these events now, but what's going to happen to, let's say, some of the kids growing up and thinking about these opportunities, because
Right.
again, I always wanted these opportunities for myself.
Yeah.
I wish there was somebody who could do something like this,
Yeah.
when I was growing up, so I can have fun and stuff like that. And then for me, the satisfaction is knowing that as I continue to do this and as I continue to get better and as I continue to be a better organizer in terms of like these fitness events,
Right.
that more and more young people and more
Yeah.
and more older folks are seeing the value of what I do, and the events get bigger and bigger every year, and the building process of it is like really, really cool for me.
Yeah. Well, they're still continuing that, right? Like they're still doing those fitness competitions around that same time, like July 4th time.
Yeah. I mean,
Because Mark is doing it out of what is that gym?
Oh, his one.
on Ningdon
yeah,
Gym,
yeah,
Fit for Life, yeah.
Yeah, Fit for Life. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, they are. So they are still doing that in the.
yeah, I
Yeah,
think
like a variation of it. Yeah.
I think, so especially like if you're living in Minnesota or you're near, I think Mark is doing another strongman event in a few weeks. So if you're in town, definitely, shameless plug, but go check him out.
Yeah, shout out to those
Mark
guys.
is great.
What's his full name on Facebook?
Mark Yang.
Mark,
yeah, or
okay.
Mark Ya, I guess. He spelled
Okay,
it the YAJ, I think.
Maybe we got to get him.
And the
on here,
gym
too.
is
Fit for Life as
Fit
well.
for Life.
So
in-
right next to Unison.
next to
So
Unison.
if you ever
So all
gone to
you people that
Unison, then
go-
you're good.
Yeah, all you people that go drinking, check out Unison next door on your day
Yeah,
off
like
from drinking.
So I'll tell everybody right now, every time we do an event at Fit for Life, obviously when we get done, we're going to get some shots at Unison. So
all
so I'm
right.
just saying.
Hey,
Sounds
so
like a
it's
good
balance,
time.
man.
Yeah,
Hand
there's
in
a
hand.
balance.
It's
Yeah,
a balance,
exactly.
hand in hand.
I mean, at the end of the day, I tell people like, everything is in balance, but I'm still Hmong, and if
Yeah,
you're
yeah,
Hmong,
support,
at
yeah.
some point, you want to support the business, and at some point you drink with people. And I think it's just a social thing. So I want to remind people that, you could be great, you could be healthy, but at the same time, you can still enjoy all the things that you enjoy. You just got to know how much and how far.
That's
if
my
that makes
problem.
sense.
Yeah.
there is
Yeah.
no. I don't know how far and how much.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
just get pedal all the way, right?
Yeah.
Get rid of the brake pedal and just have the gas, right?
That's just like my that's just how I live my life. Everything I do is too extreme. So bodybuilding was to an extreme, and then
Now
drinking
you're-
is to an extreme.
now you're farming to the extreme.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I love that commitment. I really respect it that people commit to things. Like you don't half. If you know what I mean. Like I don't want to cuss, but I think you know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Like I really appreciate that, because at the end of the day, that's how committed you are. And for me, that's also a problem as well. Learning how to take a step back, and I think surrounding yourself, like if you truly are strong, you should also understand the things that you aren't good at. And I think finding the right people to fill in those spaces for me and have people like remind me, about the dangers of pushing something a little bit too far, like lifting or like going 100% on this diet, because you know how that is, especially with bodybuilding, because what we do is definitely not healthy, but at the same time, we're pushing the narrative of being healthy. That's why I always like try to remind people that the commitment level that I have to powerlifting and lifting really, really heavy is not really a healthy thing. It's kind of dangerous, but that is something that I accept, which is why when we do the events, I always remind people that it's not always about lifting super duper heavy. That's on the extreme side. All you want to do is be strong enough to carry your groceries, strong enough to pick up that 100-pound bag of rice.
live your day-to-day.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And people don't know how good of a quality of life you would have just being able to do that. Because like my mom, when I left, she would always complain about no one's helping with her groceries, because I could do all the groceries in one go. But when she brings the groceries in, it takes her like 10 trips, you know?
Yeah.
So just something small like that, is what I'm trying to teach people.
yeah. I think that was beautifully put. Like honestly, because we talk about, we talked about in our fitness episode where it's like when you compete at these kind of high levels, it's not always the most healthy. You're not in the
Yeah.
most healthy mindset. It's almost an obsession that you have with it. But I think what you said was beautifully put, because what we're trying to do is we're trying to spread a message of health, and what we're doing exactly isn't really healthy. But people have to understand that it's at an extreme level, and what we're doing is specific for a competition,
Yep.
and it's training specifically for one thing, but it doesn't mean like what you do like can't be any like different or
Yeah, and in life, and if you're doing anything extreme, it's always going to be dangerous. Like
Yeah.
imagine like riding an airplane is kind of dangerous, or driving a car every day is very dangerous. Not exercising is dangerous.
Yeah.
Exercising is dangerous.
Right.
So from that point, if you really think about like every walk of life, there's some sort of danger in it. And I think if you are to the extreme, then you just have to be aware of the dangers, but that's the problem with, I think, a lot of people that grow up into the health and fitness, where they see what I do and they want to be there,
yeah
but they don't know the dangers that
Yeah.
come with being as strong as me. That's why I tell people all the time, like, especially Hmong people, I could teach you how to be as strong as me, because I actually want you to know what being strong feels like. But I also tell them that at one point in their lifting career, I would say, this is where it doesn't get any more fun.
right
Yeah.
Because at this point, your bones are gonna be making noises. Sometimes, like, I cough and I have to go down to the ground and breathe for like 5 minutes, because like my back is aching and I gotta wait for that cramp to go away. Like, if that's really something that you want, I could show you how to get there and not be as bad of a shape as
Right.
me
Yeah.
or like other people. But to the degree, I also remind them, at this point in your life, I think you're already golden. You don't really need to get any stronger than this. But if you decide to go this route, these are all the problems that are going to come with that strength. And if that's what you're willing to give up for that top spot,
yeah
then this is the route that you need to go.
yeah and talk a little bit about that, because we trained together 10 years ago, and we're now entering our mid 30s. Like, how has your training like specifically changed from then to now, as you age?
Yo, I mean, if I had to explain it, dude, it's crazy.
Yeah.
Especially like with my life changing too. Obviously, I have to prioritize my life a little bit different.
Yep.
But what I'm saying is, the stronger you get, the more dangerous it is, and the more dangerous it is, the more heads or more brain power you need. And I find it that, especially with Hmong people, we want to do it all on our own, or like we try to get like the least amount of help to get the most amount of gains.
Yeah.
And I'm telling people right now that the stronger you get, the more you need other
Right,
people.
right,
I have like 3-4 people that I consult all the time about like my coaching, my training, and then especially other friends too who are really, really doing the same thing I'm doing. We're talking about like programming and exercises and how to like overlap these things. A lot of people, they'll talk about like, all right, I'm gonna train 3-4 times a week, 1 hour, 2 hour. I'm thinking like, all right, I got 6 months. What can I do within that 6 months? My program is not just that small thing. It's like, how do I sleep? How do I eat? How do I get enough recovery? Who do I need to talk to improve this lift, that lift? All right, my muscles are really small here. So which, bodybuilder, kind of like Charles Shong and, Kong and even you and Jimmy, I've reached out to every single one of you guys to teach me the things that I'm not good at. And the strength level that I've acquired is because of all the little things that I've learned from that moment. And as you can tell, like, I'm still the same size,
Right.
but my shape is a little different now. I got a little bit more shape, a little bit more muscles on the areas that I used to be weak at. And I personally think, that stuff right there is what makes it really complicated. Everybody thinks about the lifting, but no one thinks about your, everything else,
Right.
how your life, what you're willing to give up. Because some people, they can't give up drinking, or they can't give up soda, or they can't give up, the parties, or they can't give up these things. And those are the things that you're going to have to start taking away from your life if that's how good you want to be.
Yeah.
And that's the toughest part, I think, of being strong, and how complicated my training is. Obviously, the workout itself doesn't get complicated. It's always just going to be, you pick this exercise and you do it. You pick this exercise and you do it. You change the intensity, you change the reps. That is set in stone. But I think what makes my training complicated is when I have to do it, because now I have kids.
Right.
When is the right time to train because my back is giving out on me? And how do I add that problem into the next 20 weeks of me hitting this total? And I have to also account for that at the meet, and it just gets really, really complicated and a whole bunch of layers that I try to keep together, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So if you can imagine, my training is a little bit of what you did, a little bit of what I've learned from everybody else, a little bit of what I do, a little bit of all the coaches that I do. And I'm just like a library,
Yeah.
and it depends on more. Like if you want to know more about how complicated it is, you would have to ask a more specific question.
Yeah.
But for the most part, let's just say that if I was to give you a program, most of the time, most people wouldn't know what to do with it. And I
Right.
would have to coach them every step of the way.
Yeah. Well, I think you touched on a very important piece too. Was like you have to take bits and pieces from everybody and be open to that, and then kind of make it your own. I think too many people would look at your program and try to follow your program to a T, and that's a mistake for them because one, they're going to end up hurting themselves
exactly.
trying to move the weights that they do, but they don't understand like the work that you've done prior leading up to that, and it's about taking these overall messages and then like interpreting that for yourself. I mean, just like anything else that you do, right?
Yep.
You kind of have to make it your style, create your own style that's going to work best. For
And which is why like I love doing these community events, because again, everybody wants to follow what I do. Like, all the time, like if you're on the Hmong fitness page, right? People always ask like, give me your workout and let me do it.
Yeah.
But if I just give you my workout and you do it, but your goals and your intentions and your intensity are different from how I do it,
Right.
you're not going to get the same results as me, right?
Yeah.
So instead of giving them a fish to eat for a day, I'm trying to teach them how to fish for themselves.
Right.
Yeah.
And a lot of the times, because I do it that way, it turns a lot of people off because people think like I'm trying to hide stuff from them.
Yeah.
But the problem is the stuff that you're not doing is why you're not as good as me, you know?
Yeah.
But, people, they just think I'm born lucky or like I'm genetically gifted or like, maybe I'm taking steroids or something like that. And then by the time they realize that the reason why they're not getting it is because they're so focused on me, they're forgetting about themselves.
Yeah.
I hated that when I used to work out. People were like, "Oh, you're just gifted. You're just big and strong naturally." And I'm like, "I'm 5'4". Like I started this journey at 125 pounds. I'm not gifted at all by any means.
And that's actually something that I kind of really hated too at first, but then I really thought about it. I was like, why did I start working out in the first place?
Yeah.
I was a super scrawny guy that couldn't do anything, small, weak, and a lot of people kind of didn't allow me to go out and play sports and stuff like that because they're worried that I'm going to get hurt.
Yeah.
So the reason why I trained was because I wasn't genetically gifted.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, because all of the people that were stronger than me quit because they got hurt, and I've been training for 20 plus years, now I'm the only one left.
Right.
That's now what makes me strong. And now people think I'm genetically gifted. And I thought about it. I was like, why am I even mad?
Yeah.
That's what I wanted anyways, Like I wanted people to start looking at me not as a scrawny, weak person that can't do anything.
Yeah.
Now people overview what I do now.
Yeah.
Because you're strong, you're also a competitive eater. So when people always expect me to eat like so much, or like when I drink, people always expect it to be like at a certain level, or like when I do anything, all of a sudden people just assume like I'm Superman, that I'm the best at everything. And I'm just like, all because you have this vision of me being strong.
Right. They put you on a pedestal.
Which is great because generally it was the opposite when I started. So maybe in some ways it's a blessing in disguise, and we just hate it because we thought that they were discrediting us. But maybe that was the whole point anyways, to get people to believe that we were genetically gifted, even though they don't know all the little steps that we took.
Yeah. And you're since the last time we talked, you're a father now.
Yes, sir.
Father of 5.
Father of 5.
Talk a little bit about that and how, like, being a new father, like, how's that changed your life? Like, how's that affected training? We don't even have to talk about training. Just like how are you doing as a father? How?
Yeah, for sure. So being a father has definitely changed my point of view on a lot of things, and I definitely think that because I've learned a lot of things from being a father, it represents in my strength. So if you think that the kids and the things like will slow you down in any part of your walk of life, I definitely think that that's wrong. Don't use your kids as an excuse for why you can't do the things that you want. And I hope to represent that idea, because people always give an excuse for why they can't do something. But okay, I work 3 jobs. You have 1 job.
Yeah.
You got 2, 3 kids. You're using that as an excuse for why you can't do something. All right, well, now I have 5, right? They're like, oh, but I'm too busy. And then you start digging into the schedule and all this stuff. And I'm like, compared to me, that's nothing. And yet I'm still able to do it. So in another way, I'm trying to set an example for everybody that watches me, that the end is not because you have kids. Don't let that be an excuse. Another thing too is like prioritizing like my life. Now, when people call me to go out and hang out, I have to really think, when I take this action, how does that affect my kids? How do they view me? Should I be spending that time more with my wife and my kids instead of going out drinking and doing all these things? So I definitely think it's made me grow in different ways, and it's definitely made me appreciate my parents a lot more. I think when I was growing up, I used to be like really angry about some of the decisions that they made, but I'm 31, and my wife, when I married her, she already had 4 boys. So I practically just accepted that role because I love who my wife is.
Yeah.
And she would not be the woman that I love if she did not have those 4 boys.
Right.
So those 4 boys are actually really important for me as well, because they made me fall in love with their mom. So I always also think back to all of that stuff and how it relates to my life and my priorities and what my parents did. And can you imagine, I'm 31 and boom, I have 5 kids.
Yeah.
My mom and dad had 5 kids when they were 20.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was thinking, when I was 20 years old,
Yeah.
imagine being in this situation right now. And I just think like, dang, my parents are way stronger than I used to think, because again, we're so small, we're so young, and we're so like egotistic, and we think about our lives only until you become
Until
that
you get a
person
taste of
yourself.
it. Oh, yeah.
Exactly. And I honestly think that's like the most important aspect of my life right now, having to accept that being strong is not just about lifting heavy, because before I got married and before I became a father, that was like literally my identity.
Your identity, yeah.
Yeah.
And having, over the last year of like raising my kids and being there with them, like I had to accept that, you know what? Maybe being strong has a different meaning for me now.
Yeah.
What if I could help you get strong and not even lift a weight at all? Then now you become truly strong, because now it's not just about you lifting weights. It's who you are as a person, what you say, what you do, a man of your word. You don't lie, you don't cheat, you don't steal. You take like the really, really hard path versus everybody else, and you never give yourself an excuse. And if something doesn't succeed in your life, you always put it back on yourself, and it's never someone else's reason for why you don't get where you get.
Right.
And all of that stuff just came with being a father, so.
Yeah. Like I definitely remember when I had my first kid, like, there was, my father left when I was pretty young, and I had, I still hold some kind of like a little bit of resentment, but just the idea that, when I was holding my daughter, I was unbelievably happy, and I was you're holding something that you created. Like there's no better moment than that, and just that thought that at some point this is how my father felt about like holding me, and then now I have this resentment for him, and we don't have much of a relationship. Like I thought that was kind of unfair, and those were definitely some of those like thinking about that definitely kills
Some
me.
lessons,
like
right?
yeah, and it definitely like hurts just because like I don't have that relationship.
But
with
maybe
them.
a blessing in disguise to show you what not to do.
Exactly.
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
For
yeah.
not to do,
Oh,
or
for
what
sure,
not to do.
for sure. Yeah,
Or do
But,
the opposite, right?
Yeah, and in a weird way, I've also accepted that maybe one day she might resent me.
Hey, man,
I accept
life is
that
crazy.
hey, you know what?
Life is crazy like
you
that.
know what? And one day she might hate me, and the only thing I could do now is just to make sure I provide her with the best opportunities
Create the
and love her
memories,
as
yeah.
much as possible. But yeah, she might hate me one day.
Create the
I'm all
memories.
right with that.
It's
I've
funny
accepted
you say that because my dad, before he had a stroke, something that he used to always say to me and my brothers is, Bei lu con bo no na,
Yeah.
got your lo chi lu you there,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And I never truly understood what that meant, because I'm like, what are you talking about? Like,
Yeah.
you're my dad. You're supposed to be doing all this.
Yeah.
Like, if you didn't want to take care of me, why did you have me in the first place, right?
Yeah.
And then again, you start thinking about all the kids, and you're like, all right, I'm buying every single kid like food, new shoes all the same time, new clothes, all this stuff. And then there's still that one child that's like, oh, but you bought a better looking shoe for that brother than
Yeah.
me. And you're like, and then they feel like you love someone else more
Yeah.
than you love them. And it's like, how do you then change their mind or their point of view about how you love them, and at the same time, maybe learn from our parents to a degree. It's almost like I always tell them, like, man, I wish my dad could say something to you guys right now, because I think the knowledge that he gave me wasn't even for me.
Yeah.
The hatred and the resentment and all the lessons that I didn't know before wasn't even for me. It was for my kids, and I just wasn't aware of it. And now when I think about that wisdom, like, it's really hitting me hard now, which is why, like, I'm visiting my parents, and my dad, so he had a stroke a few years ago, and with the knowledge that I have, I'm trying my best to get him back into good shape, just to walk again and just to be able to speak. And he's already on the trajectory to getting better.
Yeah.
And one of these days, part of the goal is to get him good enough so he could teach my kids the things that I can't teach. Because again, all I know how to do is lift weights. Man, I'm kind of an idiot everywhere else,
Yeah.
So there's things that I want my dad to teach my kids, and I'm really hoping for that day. So as much as I used to resent him for some of the things that he's done, I've come to understand it. And when I think about where I'm at in my life now, I need to stop thinking like the young James, because I'm in a way better position now. I'm not broke. I'm not thinking about what I'm going to eat the next day. I know who are, really close with me, who's important to me, who are my good brothers and friends and things like that now. I'm a totally different person than that little kid back then. Why do I want to continue to hold on to the same demons and the same pain, for no reason? I'm in such a better position. I need to think like a rich person now, because I'm rich in all of the things that I didn't have before.
Yeah.
And how can I just blame my parents for my success? Well, technically, if you think about it, because they were hard on me, I am this good, So I always I find that wisdom really, really cool being a dad, and I don't think I would have never looked at my parents in such a way if I didn't suffer some of the things that they suffer, and if I didn't have the same fear that they had about their kids hating them. Maybe I would never truly understand how they feel. You know? So I definitely feel you on that.
Yeah. Yeah.
You have any kids too?
Nope, not yet. So
Okay,
I'm listening.
yeah.
I'm taking mental
Taking
notes.
notes, right?
I'm recording all this stuff for myself.
Yeah.
This is all just for me for later on. Yeah, no, for sure. But one thing I want to talk to you about too, just to, and bringing it back to a little bit of your powerlifting stuff. Let's talk about. Obviously, we see the success, right?
Mm-hmm.
We hear about all the hard work and getting the numbers that you have now, all the accolades that came along with it. But what sorts of injuries have you accumulated through the years doing what you do?
Ooh, all right. So I actually have a broken right thumb. So if you kind of look at my thumbs, I have like the joint that kind of sticks out. I have a torn left lat, or Terry's major, I believe. I had my friend, my chiropractor friend, Fred Clary, yesterday at the meet kind of helped me pinpoint like why I get pains when I lift up. So like I can't do lat pulls or pull-ups anymore because this left side will hurt a lot. My right hip, my right knee always feels a little funky. So every morning I wake up, my knees crack all the time.
Yeah.
Sometimes when I cough, my back hurts really, really bad, and I have to lay down on the ground. Like it's so funny, like when you see me do it, but I'm in pain for that one moment, and I think I don't know if this is better or worse, but I think because of the wear and tear and the bad technique when I first started, I actually had an X-ray of my spine, and every single vertebrae from like the middle part of my back down to my pelvis, the right side is like maybe 30 or 40% smaller than the left side.
Oh, okay.
So every time I lift weights, because I have less strength on those bones, my whole entire right side takes a beating, really, really, really hard. So then I have to take all of these things into consideration when I'm trying to lift these heavy weights, you know?
Right.
So you could imagine if you had all of these problems, would you still be able to do what I do?
Right.
Would you still be able to squat, bench, and deadlift knowing that you just became a father of 5 and you're working, your new business, and at the same time you have all these injuries, So, yeah, I feel like those are my main injuries.
Yeah.
Is that thumb recent? I've never seen that.
Oh, no,
Yeah.
this was in 2016, actually.
Oh,
I actually
okay.
broke it when I was in Minnesota.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. Like I told people all the time, like I don't make an excuse for what happens.
Yeah.
Like just because I got a broken thumb, okay, the guy that wins or the guys that showcases their strength, like what is he going through?
Yeah.
They're probably going through the same thing as
Yeah.
me to be at the same level as me. So if anything, this is just an excuse for why I'm weak. This is the reason why it's okay that I don't do that weight.
Right.
Yeah.
And I try to tell myself, like, if that's gonna be an excuse, do I truly know if this is gonna make me weak?
Right.
In order for me to find out, I have to lift.
Yeah.
And I have to prove to
How
myself.
did that happen?
Before? So, outside of lifting,
Show the
Okay,
camera.
outside
Show
of
the
lifting.
outside of lifting, I'm also a breaker. A breaker.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah.
So I'm
I've
really
seen that.
into like the hip hop scene as well, and so I know you guys know like Lou Finisher and like the Loonies and Motion
Yep.
Crew and those guys. So like I think we got done doing like some event, and I think a bunch of the b-boys are talking about going to some bar. So then I ended up showing up because I moved to Minnesota and I'm trying to get to know everybody and stuff like that. So we were all like, some of us was dancing at a bar. And I think because we're breakers and, you got a bunch of drunk people kind of like drinking there and they see people breaking on the floor, they all surround and they want to watch us do all these cool moves, right? And then there was a guy that had a couple of beers and he was getting so hyped that he kept like going hype like this, and then the beer started spilling all over the dance floor. And then during my moment to go in, because like it's always a cipher. So like one b-boy goes in and then he goes out, another b-boy goes out and he goes in, and I'm like, all right, this is my time, And then when I started dancing, when I break dance, I kind of go on my fingertips.
Yeah.
But I didn't expect the beer to be there, and then boom, I slipped and broke my thumb. Was too broke to get it checked out, so I said, "F it, I'm just gonna let it heal and hope for the best." And then it turns out, like when I got an X-ray, that I fractured it, and it just grew in the opposite direction, and now I have a broken thumb.
How does that affect your grip on barbells?
So when I squat and bench, it doesn't affect me too bad, because again, when you're bench pressing, like I just need motion of the thumb around the bar. If anything, I kind of it's more my wrist joint that gets affected when I bench. When I squat, I don't necessarily need my thumb. It's more like just for stabilization.
Yeah.
If anything, if you watch from 2015 all the way up until maybe yesterday, I've never deadlifted consistently over 600 pounds. So you notice how like in 2015, I pulled 600 for the first time. And then I broke my thumb in 2016. And then every year after that, it's always 585. And then I'll miss 606. I'll get like 595. And then I'll miss like 611.
Yeah.
So every time I go over that 600, I would miss it every single time. So then I just thought, I just need to get rid of this thumb. Like, I think this is what's holding me back. So then I learned how to hook grip. So if you watch like a lot of Olympic weightlifters, so this is why I said like my brain is like a library, like if I can't find the answer in powerlifting, I have to look somewhere else. And you look at like Olympic weightlifters and you look at these guys, they do this technique called hook grip. And hook grip is slowly becoming a little bit more popular in the powerlifting world. So I just thought, if I can create a strap with my thumb, and now my thumb is no longer a part of the grip strength for my deadlifts, then I just threw that problem out of the water. So it took me about 2 to 3 years to get used to my thumb getting jammed under 600 pounds all the time. But now that I got that technique down, what is 600 now? I can do that for like reps of 5s and 10s
there's
now,
no regulation on how you grip.
Nope.
Okay.
Generally, you just
So
got.
you put your thumb between the barbell.
Yeah.
Yep.
And
So
then
practically, so like you can imagine, like if Chapsticks by Gorilla Pastures is my
Thank you.
barbell.
Great shout out.
All
Great
right?
shout out.
So imagine if this is the bar. Practically, what I'm doing with a thumb is like what I roll the bar into my thumb like this, and then I turn my thumb in this direction, and practically I put all my fingers around it and I hook it in.
Oh,
So from
okay.
here, if you kind of look at the side, when the weight comes down, the thumb is holding the bar into it, and then these fingers kind of
Right.
create a wedge. So like the heavier the weight comes in, the more it locks in.
Yeah.
So it's almost like the heavier you go, the more pressure is on the thumb.
Right.
But because I got my thumb is broken, I said, "F it." That's better, you know. If I want to lift heavy, but that's why I always say like you got to know your weaknesses, right?
Yeah.
If you know that this is a problem, you get rid of it. But obviously, it's not healthy. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like I'm trashing my thumbs, you know, and
Yeah.
I'm a massage therapist too as work. So you
Yeah.
can
You
imagine,
need it.
right? Like, how do I then incorporate hook grip where it trashes my thumbs, and then I'm also massaging people with my thumbs, you know? So
Yeah.
then I figure out ways around all these things in order to be successful at all the things that I do. And again, it's just problem solving.
Yep.
And you got to know the right people, you know? Sometimes as a power lifter, I'm very one dimensional. So then I have to talk to different people, like bodybuilders, you know, they give me ideas, Olympic weightlifters. I watch documentaries, you know, like on swimmers, you know, where if you, and MMA fighters, right, where they practice their breathing. Power lifters, we just lift heavy, right? But the breathing aspect is very important. So why not learn from the best breathers?
Yeah.
You know, people who have to hold their breath and swim all the time, you know, or mixed martial artists where they even use it as like a meditation skill, you know, and then apply that to powerlifting, to what I do, if that makes sense.
No, yeah, I think that makes so much sense. And like that's a beautiful story of like overcoming like adversity, right? And persevering through like through injuries. You know, you found an issue and then you looked elsewhere outside of your community to find a solution. I think that's a perfect example of like who you are as an individual too. Like you've always been very open minded. You've talked to me as a bodybuilder, and I've seen you interact with people in different sports, and you are a library, you are a sponge, and you are just willing to soak in all of that information. And I think that's what really makes you special. Um, what do you got coming up now? I know you just competed yesterday.
Set that new record.
Yeah.
What's
yeah.
next? Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, honestly, I honestly don't really want to focus too much on lifting itself. I mean, obviously, I'm gonna lift no matter what, and
Yeah.
if a competition comes through, then great, I will
Yeah.
do it if it fits my schedule.
Yeah.
But what I
I
really,
love that so much.
but what, yeah, but what I really want to do with the lifting now is the educational part. So
Yeah.
again, you know, if you remember, you know, from 2015 all the way up until now, we've been doing like, you know, kind of like backyard kind of a, you know, get-togethers and teaching people how to do things, but because I feel like I really don't have anything left to prove. Like, what is the point of my strength now? You know, and I had to like meditate on that. Like, everybody's in the same journey, I think, when you would lift weights, because you lift weights to do what? To be better. That's why when I look at someone that lifts 200, 300, 400, 500, 600, it's all the same to me, because when you lift a heavy weight, we all go through the same thing. You know, we're like, oh crap, it's heavy. I don't know if I got it. From a newbie to an expert, we all have that same thought. And I always think to myself, like the difference between an experienced lifter and a newbie is just that thought doesn't put fear into me like it does a newbie. So what does that really make me and him? I feel like we're on the same level. So I never really looked at my strength as like an ego thing, because I always felt like we're all on the same journey. So from that perspective, I always think, how can I then take my strength to the next level? Because the weight itself does not represent the strength anymore.
Right.
It has to be something deeper, and which is why I want to start throwing an actual powerlifting event at these get-togethers and have actual competition bars and kind of teach people a little bit about the sport that I love so much, but through the community. Because right now there's so many Hmong people getting into the fitness industry, and I just feel like maybe some of the education that they're getting is not what I would approve. But because again, I'm a Hmong person, and maybe I don't have such a big influence on some of these people, the best way for me to do it is just to give my services in this way, educate people, give them an opportunity, and show them what I think is important. And if you respect what I do, then maybe what I say will have a little bit more weight. So if anything,
Yeah.
after this, I just want to do a lot more events and coach and educate our people.
Right. Train.
Right.
Because I feel like we are at a new age, and our generation, our generation for me, I feel is a little special because not only do we understand our parents' pain, but at the same time, we're seeing the new generation grow up, and we have this special knowledge of both sides. And right now, the gap between the old generation and the new generation is so deep that we have all these mental health issues, So I feel like if you are within our generation, like the millennials, somewhere between, like, I guess, 20 years old maybe to like 40 years old, we have like in my mind, I feel like we have a special job to connect the old generation and the new. And then how do we do that? Maybe we just do it in what we know. Again, I'm not a genius, but if you're talking about health and fitness, that's my thing.
Yeah.
So maybe, for you, with your products and things like that, maybe that is the gap too. Like teaching people that, organics and natural things may be more healthier for you versus like the options. You don't have to be reliant on only the things that you see at the store. There could be a different option that can help you much deeper, but only you can do that. And then the same thing with you too, like with your business, right? Maybe that is only something that you can do, but how can we then express your skill to the old and the new, and then bring it all together? And I feel like for me, that's what maybe I was born for. Maybe that's why I have this strength, because I can't channel it through lifting anymore, because that doesn't satisfy the hunger of the strength. I know I'm gonna squat 700. I know I'm gonna get to 800. What's special about that? When you already know the end game, you already know the blueprint of it. But I want to take my strength to the next level where I don't even have to lift to get people to get strong. And that's kind of the trajectory of what I want to do for the next, 50 something years.
Yeah.
Until I get old enough to find something else,
Yeah, for sure.
But for now, that's where I'm at.
No, but I think that's what it is. I think when you've practiced something so long, and I can only imagine in your brain how many freaking hours of your own brain are spent thinking about what you do. That is what your calling is to use your energy and pass that energy forward, and then teach the lessons that you've learned along the way. And for it'll fit some, it won't fit others, but for those that it does fit, that's where the difference is made. It's for those who want to understand and who appreciate what you're teaching too.
Yeah, and it kind of to circle back to what you guys said, or what I said earlier about, like, I'm only the strongest at the moment. Because, like you and me said, the only reason why you and me got to the top level of where we were at in the Hmong community is because there's just not someone else at the time.
Yeah.
If our genetics was bad, but our work ethic is like beyond a normal person's level, and we got to this point, could you imagine like a younger kid with the right kind of genetics, with the right heart that takes my knowledge in?
Yeah.
And I like to use like Sunisa Lee as an example.
Right.
If I grew up in powerlifting with barely any support from my family members for the most part, and I was able to get to this level, Sunisa Lee was able to get just enough support from her parents, and look what she accomplished.
Right.
So could you imagine if there are maybe hundreds of kids just like me who maybe don't have the right support in their family system, but they have the right genetics or the right drive to do what I do, but then because there's no outlet for them or no opportunities or no support, that we stop the strongest Hmong guy from being the strongest Hmong guy. And like, I hurt thinking about that. You know, like, there's so many people that are so gifted and yet they waste it.
Right.
And I want to show them that if you are truly gifted and if you work hard, I want to show you how strong you can get. And I think that when people truly train under me and they realize that what I'm trying to teach them is that part of the lifting, how much further are you going to be stronger than me?
Yeah.
So at the moment, I'm only the strongest because no one is as crazy as me in that direction.
Are there some Hmong guys, girls that you've lifted with that have shown you like damn, they have the drive, they have the passion, they're pretty motivated? Because you're kind of the at the top, right? So people are naturally going to draw to you for advice. Are there some that you've seen in the Hmong community now that you're like, oh, these kids are pretty dedicated.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's a lot of again, right now is like a boom. That's why I
Yeah.
said like I feel like maybe that was why me and Ping, we're kind of like was it the trailblazers for kind of like some of the gym stuff, because now there's so many kids and so many people trying to get into the gym, way more than 10 years ago.
Yeah,
10 years ago
right.
there was like one or two bodybuilders and I was the only power lifter at the time. Now there's a bunch of kids that want to get into it. But I mean, I'm coaching two Hmong guys right
Nice.
now. Jeffrey and Zone, and these guys are like trying to get ready for a powerlifting meet. And if they have the dedication, they just needed the knowledge. And if they're willing to learn and ask advice from me, then I'm willing to take them to that level and teach them every step of the way, so they do have the opportunity to be stronger than me. Jeffrey, when he first started, I told him that eventually he's going to be stronger than me. And he didn't really believe that. But after about 6 months, this guy's about to squat as much as me, And I'm like, see, what did I tell you? I was like, everybody thinks I'm strong because you see the number. But maybe if you just had the work ethic for 6 months and you already caught up to me, what if you did this for 20 years?
Yeah, for sure.
Then I wouldn't even be who I am. See? So like I always have that great fear that there's so many hidden gems, so many Sunisali out there. And if they could just have that little bit of a push and that little bit of a dream that, hey, James Vang was also homeless at one point. He was also struggling the same way that I'm struggling. And he became this kind of a person without any push or any help from friends, not friends, from really close family.
Yeah.
And then through the hardships of lifting, I met the right people in my life to continue to bring that support and push me to continue, because again, like imagine if I didn't meet like Ping and James and those guys, maybe after college I might have quit, at least just powerlifting. I'll probably still live, but I wouldn't be who I am now. But meeting the right people in the sport or in the field, I think really, really helped me. So I'm trying to be different. I'm trying to be that for them, because I know that that pushed me. How many other kids and younger people at this stage would drop because it's too hard?
Yeah.
And I just want to show them that it was also hard for me. And because I overcame those hardships, I became me.
Yeah.
So don't give up just because it's hard,
Right.
Right. And I don't know if you guys already talked about this yet, but I think you kind of touched on that yet. We are kind of seeing like the next generation of athletes. And
Yeah.
they're kind of
And
in like a
that's-
special, unique place right now.
That's what I was asking him is who are there kids out there that are now coming up and kind
Yeah.
of looking up to him and asking James the questions like, hey, what did you do to get here, or how do I enter this competition?
Okay.
Yeah, so some of the guys that I just mentioned are pretty dedicated, because I mean they're reaching out to me, they're asking questions all the time, But at the moment, which is why like I do these events, because the last deadlift event I had, I think I had like maybe 4 or 5 16-year-old. I had some moms come out, some fathers, and some fitness influencers coming out, and we had like all kinds of different people, and maybe because of who I am and what I'm willing to give out, maybe one of these people might eventually just say, you know what, maybe I really want to do that. And when they figure that out, we'll have more people like me or like Zone and like Jeffrey and even some of my friends in Wisconsin, Ku Vang and her sister. I mean, they're like moms, but they're powerlifting as well. Nobody knows this, but they're like really, really strong women. Like you're talking about like, a little bit older than me, obviously, but they're like picking up 400 some pounds, like how many Hmong women, can do that, right?
Yeah.
Man.
And I love that, and I love that they're slowly getting into it, but they don't do it so much to where it takes away from their life too. That's why like I like to look at them as an example, as a mom, as someone who's strong and someone who competes when the time comes,
Right.
And then they give me a lot of respect too, because when they compete at national levels, they're like, oh man, it's so hard. And how does James Vang make it look so easy, So then, there's also that as well. So I definitely feel like this is the new generation, and it's really important for me to give the information that I know, because I want to see us going in a certain direction. It might be a little biased that I want people to go this way, because I definitely think like a lot of lifters nowadays want the clout, and I feel like if the cloud is what you're chasing, you're gonna give up when it gets hard. I need you to understand that there's a deeper purpose for why you're doing it. And if I could find that in you, in the right person, then you will probably see the strongest Hmong guy in the future.
Yeah.
And it's definitely not me. You know?
Yeah, and there's a lane for everything too, right? There are the people that take it very serious, and then the people maybe kind of doing it more to become like an influencer on the social media side. And there's different lanes for everything. And yeah, I think what you do is very specific, and it's at the very high end. But I think representation is needed in all of these things, right? Whether it's at the influencer level, whether it's competing at national and international competitions like what you're doing, even people at the local level. And I think it's beautiful what you've done so far.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, and I think the work that you've put in over the last 10 years you've seen it. I mean, the Hmong fitness page.
Yeah,
are you
the
still
Hmong
on that?
Fitness and Motivation. Yeah,
Like,
yeah, I'm
that's
an admin
grown
on it now,
so
so.
much, man. Oh my God, I remember when that started.
Yeah,
there
how
was
many
just
people
like
are
a
on that
few-
page?
About like almost 20,000.
Do you remember how many
yeah.
there was 10 years ago?
Well, 10 years ago,
Was it
only
even a
like
page?
300-400, you know?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So it's
Yeah.
definitely grown. I remember when I first got into the page a long time ago, there was only like a few of us, you know?
Yeah.
And then I left for a little bit. And
Yeah.
then, because again, it gets kind of toxic, you know? Like when I was a little bit less mature,
Yeah.
when I meet people who ask certain questions
Yeah.
or like look down on you, like I couldn't communicate correctly, and it really
Right.
frustrated me. And then, you know, people would say things like, "But you're James, like you lift, like you should be telling this guy he sucks." And I'm like,
Yeah.
"No, I
Yeah.
don't need to be doing that. I feel like that's not what this page is about, you know." And
Yeah.
people used to like tag me, comment me, and bash me because someone at my level should be teaching these people how to lift, and I'm like, but they didn't ask me.
Right. Yeah.
You know, I feel like that's rude for me to just be like, all right, your technique sucks. You're weak. You don't know how to bench press. Like, that's mean. You know,
Yeah.
that's not helping nobody.
That's always the worst. Like,
Yeah.
you know, it's always somebody like new that somebody's like really trying really hard, and maybe they post a video that they're very proud of, and it's not the best form. It's always sucks like when you have people that bash them, man.
Yeah.
It's always like the people that don't lift that shit on them, you know.
Yeah,
and the people
and-
that fucking go to the gym every once a month.
And at the
that'll
time,
shit
I
on
hated
them.
that,
Yeah.
you know, and so I left. And then, like, maybe 5 years later, the page grew to like maybe 9,000-10,000, you know. And some of my friends, you know, are on there. It's just like, man, you know, I know that, you know, maybe you had a falling out at one point, but, you know, there's just so many people on here.
Yeah.
And I really think, like, you know, we could use some of your guidance now. And I'm like, you know what? I'm at such a better position. Maybe, you know, because, you know, at the end of the day, I think the reason why a lot of Hmong people do that is because, you know, they have a lot of secrets themselves, or they have a lot of insecurities themselves. So instead of focusing on my insecurities, let's focus on this guy's stuff.
Right.
Not realizing that is doing more harm than good. So I just thought, like, well, if that's really how I see it, maybe I do need to join the group again, even if I know it's going to be toxic. So I told myself, like, all right, if I'm going to join the Hmong Fitness Motivation group again, I have to be ready for a lot of rude people, and I have to be ready for a lot of people to attack me again.
Yeah.
And from there, I'm just like, but that doesn't do anything. So I have to learn how to overcome that and still educate people.
Yeah.
So now if you go on the Hmong Fitness page, you know, people ask like a lot of general questions, but I made a whole YouTube playlist to answer all of these questions.
Right.
Yeah.
If you don't know nothing about fitness, I got a playlist for you. If you're getting a little bit good at lifting, I have a playlist for you.
Right.
Are you getting hurt like me?
Yeah.
I have a playlist for you. So practically every question that, you know, that keeps getting asked over and over and over again, it gets kind of annoying for me. So then when I make this playlist, the answer is just check out my YouTube channel. Check out my YouTube channel.
All right.
Check out my YouTube channel.
And what's the YouTube channel?
The YouTube channel is
plug
just
it in.
Hmong Powerlifter.
Okay.
So you just look up Hmong Powerlifter, and then you see my YouTube, and then I have playlists on there where, again, because some older people, you know, like the reason that turns them off from me is what they'll say is like, well, I don't want to deadlift 600 pounds. And I'm like, you make it seem like it's so easy to deadlift 600. Like you can just do it because you come to the gym. Like, you know how many people's been training and they can't do that, you know? But for them, in their brain, they're like, well, if I go to the gym, I don't want to lift as much as you. So how do you get those people to go into the gym instead of, you know, continue to live that sedentary lifestyle and then eventually develop like diabetes and all these underlying health problems, right? And that's the inspiration. A lot of the inspiration actually came from my dad because, I'm trying to like teach my dad all these things before the bad things happen. And then when the bad things happen, I'm just like, well, regardless, I lost. In my mind, I lost that battle. And I'm like, if this is how I'm hurting, how many other Hmong people are going to hurt just as bad as me? So then, that actually motivated me to make these playlists for those people. So like when people say like, so when you say, teach me how to lose weight. And then you say, okay, well, all you got to do is do a little bit of cardio, maybe squat, bench a little bit. Then they'll be like, I don't know what that is. I don't know what cardio is. I don't know what a bench press is.
Right.
So then I'm like, oh, so you're practically saying you have zero knowledge.
Yeah.
And then I even broke it down even deeper. Maybe before you even think about the gym, answer these questions first.
Right.
What is your main priority? And I show people like this little graph of every aspect that makes a human being, like emotionally, financially, relationship wise. And I ask yourself, if at this moment, this is the most important thing in your life, then maybe the gym isn't important for you.
Yeah.
Maybe focus on your financials, or maybe focus on your parents, or maybe focus on your relationships, right? And focus on the easiest aspect of health. And what is the easiest aspect of health if you want to focus on, money and other things? Just your diet.
Yeah.
Imagine people can be so healthy not even stepping into the gym.
Right.
You can just diet. And I tell people, like, if you are not a gym person, forget the gym. That's not healthy for you, because now you're forcing yourself to do something that's negative.
Yeah.
Just eat a little bit less. Just get rid of the water, or get rid of the soda and just drink water. Like these simple things will change your life. But people always think like they have to deadlift 600 when they ask me for advice.
Yeah. And before we get too far, like shout out to Hmong Fitness
And motivation.
and Hmong Fitness and Motivation. We don't want to make it sound like we're just bashing them or anything. That's a great community.
No,
group.
it's a good page.
Yeah.
I mean, when you go online and you have 20,000 people, I mean, keyboard warriors are going to be everywhere.
Yeah, you're
so
gonna have that.
You're going to have to
toxicity.
self-filter on your own as you read through all these things. And like James said, I know that we've all seen a post that affects us and we let it affect us. And that's kind of personal. If you want to let it affect you, you don't have to. But just know that there's good people out there throwing real knowledge out there. But self-filtering, we can't filter that out for you,
Yeah, exactly. And if you're looking to, take part in your own fitness journey, like Hmong Fitness and Motivation is a great group. So definitely look.
Yeah,
them
there's
up
a lot
on
of people on
Facebook.
there that all have all sorts of different knowledge.
Just
definitely.
before
Yeah,
the
yeah,
conversation went too far, I didn't want us to. I wanted to make sure we plug them in.
Oh,
and
yeah,
shout
yeah,
them
yeah,
out,
for sure.
too.
Like,
they do a
I mean,
great job.
I don't
think
mean
they
to
serve a
sound
great
negative, but
purpose.
generally this was like the beginning of it.
Yeah, yeah.
And this was at the beginning of when I wasn't as mature as I am now. But like I guess you can almost say like I'm at a point in my life where like none of that stuff bothers me anymore.
I think 5 children probably puts it.
Oh, yeah.
5
Oh,
children
yeah.
probably helps that, huh?
But in life, I always find it that, again, those people that bash on people, or like, something that I really dislike is like when people post like gym fails,
Yeah.
And everybody loves to bash on all these people. And when I look at all the comments, I'm just like, wow, you got something that you're hiding. You got something that you're hiding.
right.
You got something that you're hiding. You guys are just really, really hurt. And you guys want to focus on these guys.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think like how many other people, like let's say moms or young kids that would watch these gym fails would be like, that's me.
Yeah.
And look at my people bashing on technically me.
Yeah.
And then I would step in and I'll say, I don't see the point of you posting these gym fails because it's not funny to me. Yeah. I'm like, you're posting a guy doing like some DDR stuff at the gym, right? And you're like, he looks dumb. But I said, what if he's training for a DDR competition?
Right. Yeah.
Maybe what he's doing is the best thing ever.
Yeah.
Right. But you don't know that because you're judging him based off of your priorities and your knowledge. And I feel like putting focus on making fun of someone else is just you trying to feel better about your journey. And I don't want that for them either. So it's like, again, I think about health like really, really deep. And I really, really want to help our people as much as I can because, we're so young, living in America. And right now, my kids are the most important things for me.
Yep.
And if they're going to grow into this community, I want to make sure that the community has a place for them as well. Not everybody has to look at life the way that I look, but at least I want there to be like a journey or like a pathway where when I pass on that my kids and my grandchildren can like live beyond my life in the way that maybe is a little bit more like how I envision it, at least in the health and fitness realm, you know. So unless I do something about it, no one else really cares about this stuff.
Right.
But if I'm like losing sleep over this, then maybe that's something that I have to do, you know, and that's what I want for my kids. So if I want that for my kids, I'm pretty sure you want that for your kids too.
Right.
And eventually you might want that for your kids. So practically I'm just setting up the foundation to build like positivity in that space, you know?
Yeah. That's awesome, man.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're at an hour and 15 minutes.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, first of all, I just want to say thanks for coming on, and actually, you know, you're all the way down in Georgia, and you came up here, and you're gracious enough to give us like an hour of your time to talk about your journey. I've followed you for a while. Obviously, you guys are friends. I hope that there's new people who are listening who've never heard of you, and that they can hear your story. Where do they find you best? If not that you probably need more messages in your inbox.
Oh, yeah,
you don't
yeah.
share if you want, share if you don't. But if there is people interested in knowledge, either in what you do or if they can actually reach out to you, like how do they get a hold of you, or where do they find you?
Yeah, so my Instagram and my YouTube are both Hmong Powerlifter.
Okay.
So like definitely reach out to me on that if you got any sort of questions. Every now and then I'll hop on the Hmong Fitness and Motivation page if I feel like there's something that I need to address or something that I need to show people. So you can also reach me out up on there. And then I also have a Facebook, but generally that's more for like, you know, my friends. So eventually if you know, show up to my events and you get to meet me as a person, definitely save me as a friend, because at the end of the day, I don't want to shut that off, you know, but at the same time, you know, just know that my circle is also very important for me. So like if this isn't something that's really important for you, then generally don't save me as a friend. You know, like I know people just save random people as a friend, but for me, I really try to keep that a little bit more compact. So definitely find me on Instagram and YouTube. And from there, we can build a relationship, you know.
Sure.
Right
Awesome.
on.
Thank you, James.
Yeah,
man.
no,
Love
thank
having
y'all,
you, dude.
man.
It's
Yeah.
been such a long time, man.
Yes,
So,
sir, man.
thanks for
And
coming
honestly,
on.
you know, thank you guys for, you know, again, inviting me and even just asking questions and taking some time out of you guys' busy life too, because I know like we're all very busy, and, you know, I'm kind of compact to about a week, you know, up in Minnesota. So just the fact that, you know, we can spend some time talking about something that I really love, and then, you know, kind of build off of each
For
other
sure.
and, you know, learn
Share-
from each other too.
Share
you
it
know?
to the community too, you know. If we don't talk about it, then no one else will. I mean, there are people doing it, but the more the merrier, so that the community has more choices, right? Ultimately, you want the community to have as many choices they can choose to who they want to listen to. But if in every conversation, me and Peng always say, if there's even one lesson that can be learned, either selfishly it's for us to learn a
Yeah.
lesson,
Oh, yeah.
but we know that somebody else will probably hear just one thing that maybe impacts them, either to do the right or the wrong thing. You know, it'll lead them to make a different decision, and that's ultimately what this podcast is about. And after that, it's meeting cool people too. So,
Yeah, man.
all
But
I
again,
got.
you know, thank you
Hell
guys,
yeah.
man. Appreciate
Thank you,
it.
James.
all right, we're out.
All right, peace.